would probably consider this the hardest group I've ever played in.
在当初抽签的时候，就看起来我们组算是比较难的吧，就是我们看起来就是一个死亡之组嘛。
It's a very welcoming challenge because then also if you were to make it out of this group, then if you don't believe you can win Worlds, you'll never win Worlds. So we just need to be able to fight to death.
You are dead!
Easily enough for Kong.
When it matters most, Uzi comes up clutch.
Going against these three teams, if we want to go 3-0, we're just speedrunning up Mount Everest. So, you know, it's going to be tough.
I have never seen an underdog team be more excited to be placed into the group of death.
Remember the Fnatic when they were 0-3. They didn't give up, and we can't give up either because it's been done before.
Elite CC coming through, and that cat is out of there!
The best team in the world doesn't complain about hard groups because they are what makes the group hard.
Oh, comes back on the FLICKR!
And that's the attitude that SKT has coming into this World Championship.
我们自己队员心里应该觉得，就如果我们能击倒 SKT 或是在这种小组里面出现的话，我们应该今年也是有竞争冠军的实力。
It's close. SKT! They play the map right, and they find the nexus!
That's the biggest deal, right? Is the pressure in this group, as well as the pressure you're going to put on other teams when you make it out, because they're going to be looking at you.
And what a day we have ahead of us as the teams in Group C take to the stage. I'm Dracos, joined by Kobe and Vedius for the first 3 games of the day, and most importantly, the first game of the day, SK Telecom T1 versus RNG. It has to be an incredible game.
I am so excited to get this game underway. We are about to see 2 legends go at it once again. Uzi and FLICKR, 2 of the longest standing, best performing players our game has ever known.
And the last time they faced, it was probably one of, if not the most competitive game that we've had in group stages so far, with both teams going back and forth. SKT trying to overforce a lot of fights in the mid game when their comp didn't allow it. RNG showcasing the true power of their team fighting, but in the end, SKT finding that backdoor to secure a win. And it just goes to show how close these 2 teams actually are.
And it was such a crazy finish because up until you realized the backdoor could come through, up until you saw all 3 of those TPs being channeled as FLICKR's already on the top side, you're like, oh, RNG are winning. They're pushing in on the bottom side. Like, they've won every team fight for the last 5 minutes. This is their moment. They're going to win this game. And just an instant, it is taken away from them. So that has to be rough. Coming back into this rematch, that's something that RNG have to be painfully aware of.
And I really liked how that game put on display the preparation of SK Telecom. Drafting the global for FLICKR with Twisted Fate in the mid lane in preparation for knowing that RNG are going to play around Uzi in the bottom side, that there's this big threat that he'll have to deal with. That bottom side was winning early on in lane phase for RNG, but FLICKR had to push up in mid and correct it with the Twisted Fate teleporting down there, as well, of course, as ending the game with that exciting teleport into the back door and finishing off the Nexus.
And I'm curious as to what adaptations will be made in week 2, because we've seen evolutions from both groups so far. Splyce made a dramatic change in their approach to the game, allowing them to qualify for the quarterfinals. Griffin went 4-0 yesterday, completely dismantling G2 in their final game and securing first seed. And now the question is, which team will be able to show up? Because expectations are that it will be these 2 teams fighting for that first seed especially.
And of course, brief moment before we get into champion select, and I think pick and ban is just going to be so interesting as well. Do we see the semi-global presence once again, the focus coming out from the side of SKT? Do they want to match team fighting power with team fighting power? Because the meta's also shifted a decent amount. We've seen a lot more Kiana getting through. Don't think it should happen, but it's happening anyway, and the champion's proven both to be very powerful, but also very volatile.
It's something that I think both these teams don't really put a huge amount of priority on. Something that Papa Smithy was talking to me about coming into the tournament was how LCK as a region is pretty slow to pick up new picks. Qiyana was something that during their playoffs, they actually had very little priority over, but we have seen it rising in popularity, especially when we saw Griffin's performance yesterday on the champion. And while I'm confident FLICKR can play it, I think it's one of those champions that they have a lot more other picks that they're very much more comfortable on, and the same can be said for RNG. They're not typically a team that would try and put something like a Qiyana mid or Qiyana jungle because it forces you to play a certain way.
Yeah, a lot of both of these team strategies has really focused around controlling the game, controlling the pace at which you move forward as well. So I'm super excited to get into the draft and see what it ends up coming down to. There are a lot of changes, like you're talking about, that are going to occur from the first day that they played until today.
And obviously, when you look at this matchup, it's easy to talk about the history of it, but I also think it's important to look at the stakes in this game specifically. If SKT win here, they will lock a spot in the knockout stage. Not first or second seed yet, but they've already secured that they will go through the next stage of the tournament. So getting this win to start the day makes the whole rest of the day so much easier. One, you're already facing the strongest opponent, perceived to be at least, and on top of that, you win here and you know you're already out.
And with G2 dropping to Griffin yesterday, SK Telecom right now poised as one of the heavy favorites for this tournament. So people are really going to judge today's game with a lot of weight. How are they going to look heading towards the best of series?
Yeah, and there's always that quiet fanatic sitting in the background waiting to see if they can take advantage of it. They've many a times upset in groups, but they're going to be keeping an eye on how both these teams play out in this game, and expectations are high. We believe that both these teams are the strongest in the group. I very much enjoyed what we saw last time, and something we talked at length before coming into this game was RNG have a tendency to play through the bot side, but it's not an exclusive playstyle, Kobe.
Yeah, a lot of people have really, really touched on this. I mean, there's a reason that RNG funnel so much into Uzi. It's because he is such a dominant player. And you can hear it in the reverence that any marksman player who has played against Uzi will talk about him with. His oppressive lane phase is very, very big. That's why when we're looking at the beginning of this champion select, RNG have had 3 straight early Xayah picks.
Ooh, not today, Kobe. Right as you say it, SKT, take it away.
And that's that adaptation that we're looking for from the first day that these teams play, taking that away from Uzi. Xayah right now, with the self-peel of the ultimate and the strong laning phase, combines every aspect of League that RNG want to play off.
Banning the Morgana as well.
Yeah, the Morgana ban suggests that SKT could be looking at something like the Rakan. RNG immediately going to take the Kayle away from SKT.
I think Lee Sin would be a very good pick into an early Kayle here because you want the options as a jungler, and Elise is already banned out first on RNG's side. Lee Sin gives you so much playmaking that you can try and attack teams that are drafting Kayle that are trying to scale up a bit towards later. Plus, Clid is extremely proficient on it, and there they go. SKT have got it.
Ryze and the Lee Sin. I love it. I hope it goes into the hands of FLICKR, but has still the potential to be flexed to the top side of the map. And this is going to be the Jarvan now locked in, a champion that's been kind of missing in pick bans thus far.
And it's a champion that synergizes very well with those big AoE ultimates. Kayle really enables divers here. And so RNG are already showing in the first 2 picks. They are looking at 5v5s. They're looking at some AoE combinations. Jarvan Cataclysm trying to keep people in a group for either the Kayle ultimate and something else on top of it. You can look for things like Rumble or Gnar for the top lane to get some more AoE in there.
So looking at final pick for SKT, they could look to go for something like a Karsa right now if they wanted to. Scales quite well, would also add a late game insurance to this composition that SKT is already drafting for themselves, and could match the AD carry pick already locked in for RNG. And then SKT would also get priority on the supports in the second half as well.
Personally surprised to see Uzi go for the Ezreal instead of the Kaisa himself. Kaisa and Xayah perceived to be the top 2 carries. Interestingly enough, Garen and Ezreal are the 2 right behind them as far as bot laners go.
And one of the biggest pros for Ezreal is that is a self-sufficient carry, right? If you're designing a team around diving in with Kayle and Jarvan and you want to use your Kayle ultimate offensively, you don't want to have to save that Kayle ultimate for your AD carry, so you pick Ezreal, has the arcane shift that can keep himself safe while the rest of the team dives forward.
Now that Tahm Kench ban might seem a little odd. However, throughout the split, something that RNG will consistently run is Ezreal Tahm Kench, and they would force dives with it. They would look to attack the bot lane very aggressively, and it was something that actually paid off dividends for them during their playoffs. So SKT showcasing their research.
Completely agree there. On top of it, SK Telecom are also drafting side lane pressure right now. They have a Ryze that can split push and a Karsa that can join fights from very far away when you apply the plasma for her. So you don't want a Tahm Kench to save people in those situations. You are trying to split the map. You are trying to play the side lanes. And Tahm Kench is a very good ban to deny that.
And now with the Karma banned out as well, if that was a target at Ming, it looks like they're trying to deny a strong pushing bot lane from the side of Royal Never Give Up. We are going to enter the second pick phase shortly as the Twisted Fate will be denied from FLICKR, giving respect over to the flex pick Ryze.
So now SKT, they want to lock in their support. They want to save that final solo lane pick to try and get the best possible matchup. And a lot of the primary supports that we've been seeing this meta have been banned away. Rakan is still open, should either team want to go for it. But it looks like SKT, they want a little bit more engaged, so they're going to lock in the Leona. And this has now become a pretty strong 2v2 lane that SKT could look to play through depending on what their other solo lane is.
Exactly. Looking at playmaking to try and attack the bottom lane of RNG. That's one thing that we talked about in game number 1 with these teams that SK Telecom tried to do. Now they've got Kayle Leona for the extra stuns and Lee Sin to be able to make those moves.
And there's that dive you were talking about, Kobe. The Galio going to be following up from the Jarvan and the Kayle ultimate on top of that. So RNG sticking to what they often know, which is go in, fight hard, fight fast.
And I love to see it. I love the Jarvan Galio combo. Pairing with a Kayle feels so powerful, and it gives them some semi-global presence to match a lot of what SKT beat them with last time around. And I mean, if you get a Gnar here, if he's just going to build a wall and throw him into it, no, Mordekaiser in the end. But when you saw how long she played in the last matchup, it makes a lot of sense. This was such a good pick for him.
Yeah, one thing that I would say he didn't do good last time was ult the jungler around objectives. So we're going to look at some of the ult usage for this Mordekaiser, but a lot of the pros of this champion are that you can actually delay even longer in 2v1 scenarios. If the jungler comes to gank you, you can then ult the jungler, have your 1v1, delay even further before going down and allow your team to get that fight off.
I will say I'm a big fan of this SKT draft. I feel like that they have good scaling matchup in the top side. FLICKR will be able to generate a lot of pressure in the mid lane, which means he has priority and can move towards the side lanes much earlier. And you also have a strong bot lane that you can look to make play towards. Now, it's not easy against an Ezreal or Galio, very defensive lane, but if you bring 4 members down with a Gangplank ultimate, SKT can definitely force these fights. So I feel like that the early game is a lot more in control of SKT.
Yeah, it's not as powerful as the Twisted Fate ultimate going down there to gank, but the Gangplank ultimate is the same idea for SKT. They do want to have something to keep them in check.
And one of the things that RNG is going to struggle with is this Kayle in the mid lane. Because it will not be able to generate pressure and because you can't really play through it, FLICKR is going to have so much freedom to ramp up and be this big threat on a side lane. And something we've been seeing a lot from Kayle's is that because you don't have the same strength in the early game, teams have built early leads and then ran away with it.
And Ryze combos very well with Lee Sin. If FLICKR just sets him up with the root, that is going to be a lot of 2v2 pressure.
But here we go. And here we are, RNG versus SKT. Last time, SKT got the better of RNG, but RNG looking to turn it around today, looking to tie up the score, potentially force a tiebreaker at the end of the day for first seed. If SKT win here, they lock themselves a place in the knockout stage. So much on the line for both these lineups.
Now, in terms of early game, we talked about how it's hard for RNG to play through mid, and arguably it's a little difficult to play through bot as well, but the top lane is something that I think RNG could look to attack. Mordekaiser, his early damage is something that I think a lot of people don't respect. It is extremely high, and when paired up with a Jarvan, it is very easy to look to set up dives onto someone like a Gangplank. So we have to keep our eyes on how Karsa chooses to path in the early game, whether he'll look to path from top side to bot to cover his bot lane, or whether he'll actually look for some early aggression up towards the top side of the map.
Meanwhile, on the side of SKT, I think Clid's going to put a high priority on this bottom scuttle crab because he wants to play between this mid and bottom lane triangle that we like to talk about so he can threaten both the Ryze lane and the Leona lane. Both of those champions, ideal setups for early Lee Sin plays, and you want to be able to freely move through that river. So pay attention to the vision control around this river because it's going to be kind of the highway that he uses to traverse both lanes.
And let's have a look at this early ward that was placed down from the side of Khan, because you can see that by getting information on the blue buff, this now tells him where Jarvan is starting. He's likely going to be on red and look to path towards top, but Karsa immediately going towards bottom.
Jarvan, as you can see on the mini-map, is wrapping around to do a lane gank, but an intelligent ward from Effort there in the side brush. Actually, probably from Teddy, places it down, and they've given away the situation already.
And they've spent so much time now. Jarvan just starting his Krugs as Lee Sin has finished his. Clid going to be so much further ahead. Could now look to contest that bottom Scuttle Crab. Actually, probably uncontested at this stage if Jarvan wants to go for a safe clear.
You're exactly right, Dracos. The timing that was invested to try and make that play happen and the fact that it was spotted out means that Clid is going to be out on the map so much faster. He's already been able to clear both his red and Krugs. He's going to get level 3 off of this blue, and they have the vision set up in the bot side of the map. They have hit level 2. They could look for an easy game.
Mordekaiser going to find the pullback. Won't be able to get anything else done, but already seeing the Gangplank for now, at least having some pressure on the top side as Clid sets his sights on the mid lane. We've seen a lot of tower dives onto early level Kayles this tournament. Has to be something that Xiaohu is aware of, but for now it will just be a focus on stealing away the enemy rafters. Good start for Clid so far.
Exactly. This is the early bottom river control that I was alluding to in the opening of the game. They've got 2 wards, both sides of the entrances of this river. Clid also stealing away the Raptor camp. This is exactly how SK Telecom want the early map to play out. Now trying to force him off the CS here. They're not really threatening to go for the kill on the dive, just pushing Xiaohu back a bit.
FLICKR will pull away, but difficult so far for Karsa. Bottom lane gank does not work out due to a clever ward. He's been spotted twice now as the Khan on the top side did just get a brief glimpse of where he was pathing.
I love seeing this early vision from SKT. It's just how efficient they are with all of their members. There's always wards somewhere to just gain information, know what RNG is up to, and to mitigate it. The early ward into the bot lane, the early ward onto the enemy blue buff, anything that Karsa has tried to do has been reacted with perfectly and has been shut down, and now Clid has even found a small advantage by stealing away the Raptor.
Checking in again on the bottom side. Uzi doing fine so far, but a much more even bottom lane than it was last time around. Obviously, massive early CS discrepancies in the favor of Uzi when he was on that Xayah. Now pushed back onto this Ezreal. A historic pick for him, but not one that was as powerful in seasons past. Going to have to see what he can actually get done with it.
Yeah, Uzi extremely good at trying to weave those Mystic shots through the minions for harassment in lane phase. And I just want to once again compliment SKT for their early raid as far as the warding on bottom side. Knowing that RNG is going to send Karsa down there very early to try and take advantage of what would normally be a very aggressive lane. Let's see here though, as Langx gets some deep wards for themselves, and RNG now with some decent vision on Krug camp and the top of red there.
Karsa looking to attack the bot lane. I don't think they can go for a dive, and that ward has just been spotted out by SKT, so they have information on where Karsa is and keep track of Clid and how he reacts. He's also going to be spotted by RNG, and there's the flash.
Guaranteeing the root. He's going to hit the Sonic Wave of the follow-up. That's going to be a Xiaohu. No, the flash out just barely a sliver of life as Karsa will stop, and he followed. And immediately there's an engage on the bottom side. Ming going for an aggressive trade, but no one has dropped yet. FLICKR lower and lower. No, the Jarvan's going to get it. We missed it on the bottom side, but Karsa will find first blood.
Xiaohu flashes away and survives with a sliver of health, but FLICKR not so lucky. Bottom side.
Knockup is there. Uzi under the tower. Is he going to go down the flash out? No, he takes Effort out with him. It's the 1-for-1 so far. Teddy has no mana. Ming slowly but surely getting chipped away at the press the attack already proc. The damage is there, but not quite enough. Ming will be forced to flash to safety.
Action across the board, but it's RNG that come out ahead in the kills. And it all starts off in the mid lane. both junglers making their way there. This looked like a clean gank. Kobe, you said the setup with Ryze Lee Sin is extremely easy, but the last tick just wasn't quite there for SKT. They were so close to finding that kill, and then Karsa knows with the red buff, with no mana on FLICKR, with his flash gone, he can just chase FLICKR down.
Yeah, Karsa had done an early recall for challenging Smite and was able to get it. Meanwhile, bottom side, Ming's able to get that lockup, but Uzi dies even after burning the flash there on the outside, and we're right back to the action.
Constant aggressive trading, and it feels already a bit more bloody than the last time we saw these two teams go toe-to-toe. It was such a back and forth early to mid-game. We saw SKT and RNG go up against each other previously, but you can see on the graph a chaotic game, and no matter how far ahead one team got, there was always a chance for someone else to come back.
Yeah, it was a bit of a bumpy road there, as you can see, but a lot of the big spikes in SK Telecom gold that you could see between the 20 and 30 minute were from Twisted Fate plays from FLICKR roaming across the map. Here, RNG actually there to answer that first play that we're expecting. Lee Sin as well as Ryze combining, but with them getting the outplay and Karsa actually finding that first blood cash in, this really does set up RNG to answer back.
Xiaohu has to be careful though. He's not going to overcommit to the play. Karsa waiting in the darkness there will now be spotted on the ward, but level 6 coming through. That's the extra range for the Kayle. Much easier now to farm, much easier now to trade on top of the additional elixir, and Karsa feeling comfortable enough to just walk right into this pit.
Well, he should, because his bot lane has so much control. And something that you were talking about earlier on, Kobe, was how the reason why RNG more often than not play through Uzi is not because he needs raw resources, but because he's such a talented AD carry that it makes sense to put him in a great position. And if you look at the gold, he's sitting at a 500 gold advantage thanks to the Kleptomancy and thanks to how dominant he has been in this 2 versus 2.
Exactly. We saw them earn their 2v2 CS lead themselves, and then as soon as the junglers show mid, go for the aggressive play. We're still looking at a bit of a roam from FLICKR, though. Now that Ryze does have the Realm Warp, there are more possibilities. So I'd like to point out one of the wards, actually, that I really do like in mid lane, which we'll see which side of the lane FLICKR hovers towards. People often, with these limited resources of wards, will try and ward both sides to see everywhere on the map. But if you only have a couple, trying to get one in the middle just to see which side he leans to will give you that early notification.
Clid spotted on the control ward. Karsa waiting just in the darkness. Now rotating around, maybe looking for the lane gank. Effort waiting in the brush there. No flash available for Teddy. The Hex flash there from Ming. Will not catch anyone sleeping. Effort has already backed off.
Nothing more terrifying than a giant stone gargoyle flashing in your face and saying, peekaboo, I'm here, ready to make a play, but they're not going to find anything. Clid hanging around the mid lane. And notice how often Langx is actually roaming every time he has push in top. He's a large part of where the top side deep vision is coming from, and he's setting up a lot of control in the river as well.
And as we're seeing Karsa once again, I just want to note, this is the second time he went for a lane gank. This is how you try and get into the lane like bottom lane, unannounced. However, SK Telecom have been diligent with their side brush wards. And for a second time, RNG had to spend time sweeping out that vision, and it is a second attempt at a lane gank from Karsa slipping into the side brush that does not yield them anything in Uzi's lane.
Karsa spotted out as well on the blue buff. Going to donate this one over to Xiaohu, but they're just so successful in the junglers tracking each other here in the early game.
We see a bit of a roam from effort. I love it when we see supports, when there's no need to be in the bot lane, they get active, they move on the map. Best setup when working with their junglers especially, because it guarantees you deep vision and looking for roams. And speaking of roams, FLICKR is making his way towards the bot lane.
No more biz up and available. Very short range at rank 1, but could try to find a way into the bottom side. Ming just now coming in.
The pings are coming down. RNG is aware that FLICKR should be looking for a play, and as he walks over that ward, they know his positioning and will be able to avoid the game.
Yep, once again, these 2 wards from RNG see the attempted play from SKT, and that's why we're getting so many lulls periods here in the early game. It's because of this extra information, so much of an investment from RNG, really paying off and stopping some of these SKT plays before they even get off the ground.
And now we need to talk about scaling. Inevitably, when a game slows down, it's something that we have to look at. We've talked about the theoretical team fight power of the side of RNG. Are they the team that should be happy with a slower, steady steadier early game as opposed to something more explosive.
Well, I think in the mid game, SKT have a very strong spike, especially with their solo laners. Ryze and Gangplank on 1 or 2 items can be very influential. Whereas the Kayle, I feel like she needs to get to 3, and depending on what build Ezreal goes for, also needs to get to 3. But I do think RNG have the slight scaling advantage. Depending on whether or not how the next few minutes play out, because it's going to be about team fighting versus side lane, very similar to what we saw before, and whether or not, or which team is better set up to move into that state in the mid to late game.
And they're looking for a little bit slightly different things as the game does progress, right? RNG have so much potential for a large AoE play. They're trying to use the Cataclysm of Jarvan with the Kayle ultimate down on top and Galio coming through as a big AoE, highly effective group maneuver. Right now, though, starting up the Rift Herald for SK Telecom, they made the first recall, but RNG are here to answer.
She's on the way. Can just ult the Lee Sin to try to get him out of this pit to stop this objective from going down. It will just be the hop up the wall, but it is 3k health. They could still look to contest this. 5 members of SKT now piling in. The Galio's there with the taunt. It's not going to stop the Realmore power. The fight breaks out. Karsa immediately kills Khan. The Mordekaiser in the midst of everything, and the Kayle will stop him from going down. Clean from Xiaohu.
And just as I mentioned, the big AoE for the team fight for RNG pays off in the ultimate usage there. They do get the kill, and even though the Rift Herald was slain by SKT, they can now play Defend the Eyeball.
Ming doing his best to keep SKT away from the big eyeball. He's looking for a fight.
Wants to keep going. Uzi, there's members here, but there's too many members of SKT. That was not the play that they needed.
Ming's gone rogue! What is he doing? All by himself, charges down SK Telecom, and they're going for more. The eyeball's still there. Can they race to it?
Xiaohu on the way in. Karsa needs to get out. He's waiting for the stun to come through. He dashes right back to the team. He flashes out to safety. Sonic Wave goes wide. SKT will back off.
The eyeball disappears from the Rift, and RNG, after what was a good... Oh! Okay. After what was a good start to the fight, ended up with Ming being a little over-eager to keep SKT around. And overall, this was a situation where we talked about while the items spike harder for SKT in the mid game, when you group up in a situation like this, you can see how difficult it is to fight against RNG. And we're getting flashbacks to the last time that these two teams placed up. And notice how that Rumble actually split the team up. We don't have time, another fight.
Taunt will connect on the Faker. Uzi is here as well. How much damage can they actually put down? The Mordekaiser now stepping forward, looking to use the Grasp of Death. Will not be able to pull anyone back. RNG, though, complete control of the mid lane. Could look to break some plates.
Yeah, they could also rotate down to this dragon. They could push in that minion wave. This will be another objective that they can turn towards. And adding a Mountain Drake to a team that has a big AoE combination, that just shouts the dream setup for Baron. Hello, they're going to get Baron control with the Mountain Drake and dare SK Telecom to walk into them.
And one of the criticisms I had of SKT coming into this tournament was that while they are a fantastic and much better early game team, they seem to have this over tendency to try and force fights. We saw it a lot in the last time that these two teams matched up, and it was almost SKT's undoing. And one of my question marks today was, would SKT draft more towards team fight, or would they keep to this side lane split push style? And it feels like that even though they've gone for more of a side lane split push style, they're still eager and willing to try and take these fights. And it's dangerous against a team like RNG, who is known for their team fighting and often drafts for it.
Yeah, and I think that last fight really highlighted how they were a little bit lazy setting up for that Rift Herald. SKT walking across in the line, really providing a very good opening for Ming to get in there on Galio. They get the big burst kill so quickly. Definitely not something you're used to seeing from SK Telecom over the years, but part of this aggressive new SK Telecom is another reason why they are here. You know, they had to change from the old style that caused the downfall of so many of those Korean teams. They really have had to embrace part of the new age.
They certainly have, and one of the big people that we credit that to is Clid in the jungle. He was so instrumental in even swinging team fights into SKT's favor the last time they met up. His Gragas was phenomenal, and overall, he's had a great tournament, and we even heard Spawn on the desk saying that he thinks that Clid is the best performing jungler at this tournament. So the fact that this team is playing a lot more around him, it showcases the evolution that they've made. We'll have to see if it's enough to take down RNG a second time.
Clid and Karsa, definitely two of the favorites for top junglers in the tournament, and this group will tell us a lot about what's to come in the bracket stage to see which of these teams is stronger. For now, still a very close game. Both teams within touching distance of each other. Neither one able to get a greater advantage over the other. Only the Mountain Drake, really the substantial objective, as RNG have managed to take that one.
And I like that at the 15-minute point, you can pivot for strategy now, because we've gone past the early stacking phase of the game where they're just trying to lane and get their items. Now you've got a level 11 Ryze, a level 11 Gangplank on the side of SK Telecom. They want to transition into their 1-3-1 that they drafted for. FLICKR's Ryze should be split pushing. They need to wear away at these towers. Gangplank ultimate for Khan is available, and he also has teleport to answer. So SKT trying three-man mid, hold here, holding on to those waves, and they have sent these side laners to split RNG's combo up.
As we get further in the game, you can see Uzi holding on to that 500 gold difference that we saw in the early game. Also saw him use an Ezreal earlier just to snipe a few creeps away from Langx on the top side. So slowly but surely getting stronger and stronger as Ezreal, and maybe not the traditional hyper carry, but 2 items under his belt, he is going to be a terror to deal with.
And you see SKT actually not greeting right now. They could have greeted for more tower damage on the top side, but you need to get your reset off versus this squad, because you have to keep up this tremendous vision that they have to allow them to keep on playing the way that they are. Big reason here, you can see the smattering of wards for RNG. They need to get them a little bit deeper to find the Leona. Someone has to mark Leona, because if not, you're worried about that long-range stun picking off one of your squishier members.
And I think that what both teams are looking at over the next few minutes will be the Infernal Drake. Minute and a half until that objective spawn. Both teams will definitely want it, and with the Seraphs completed and the Trinity Force completed, SKT will feel a little bit more comfortable setting up for that objective, but in an ideal world, they don't want to have to fight for it. They want to try and use pressure on the map to force RNG into an awkward situation where maybe SKT could find a pick, or they force RNG to trade the Infernal Drake for something elsewhere on the map. But that's not RNG's style. They're going to contest you for vision, and they're going to look to fight for this Infernal themselves.
I'm excited for this Infernal, Vedius, because the items are coming through. 2 item power spikes for both marksmen right now. Key items for both solo laners as well, and Xiaohu's got his eyes on FLICKR.
FLICKR running down, no CC present. FLICKR will just be able to realm warp out to safety, but threatening that engage. That's going to be 1 cooldown missing for the fight to come. If they do want to contest that Infernal, 37 seconds and counting down till that one will spawn as Uzi and Ming try to get mid-priority. Want to make sure that they can be first to the pit.
So a lot of things are happening right now. Khan is going back to base so that he can spend his gold. Ooh, he's deciding not to do it. Okay, he wants to try and catch 1 more wave before he resets, but he wants to spend that gold before the inevitable fight is coming through. Trinity Force is now done for Uzi, so at this portion of the game, he's going to be much stronger. Rageblade is done for Teddy. We're building up all these things coming together that will culminate in what should be a big fight around the Infernal Drake.
This is the training arc. We're waiting. Everybody's powering up. Everybody's getting every item they can under their belt before they break out. We're waiting for a single engage, a single Leona E. It can be the Galio, it can be the Jarvan, however either team wants to start it. And now the gauntlet has been set. The Infernal.
Here comes the TP.
Going to be right into the taunt. The flash out from Khan. That's a clean start, but right now RNG are currently split. Uzi has to debate where he wants to go. The ulti already coming out, trying to isolate Leona, trying to stop the CC, but Xiaohu already incredibly low in the back of the pit. Blocked there. Ted just leaps in and takes the kill. And now Uzi has to go toe-to-toe with the Infernal Drake. His effort goes over the wall. This is a disaster for RNG. The Mordekaiser trying to get done what he can, but Uzi is still alive. Uzi is still in the pit fighting the Drake as the Mordekaiser and FLICKR go toe-to-toe, but Ming drops, and SKT take the fight.
SKT absolutely ripped RNG apart in that dragon fight. Xiaohu getting focused at the beginning, causing the early Kayle ultimate, and then flashing into the dragon pit causes an early deficit in their team fighting prowess, and SK Telecom sweep in to get the important trait.
It looked initially like RNG had the better setup. They saw the TP come through from Khan, he's forced to burn his flash, and you can see that now RNG are in a great position, but then a huge Gangplank ultimate onto Xiaohu pretty much eliminates him from the fight, and Teddy cleans up. Now Uzi's stuck in the pit, he can't deal damage. Langx is just 1v1ing effort trying to remove the engage from SKT, but that doesn't matter, and ultimately what looked good initially for RNG was just a scattered fight with which SKT was able to pick RNG apart.
Divide and conquer for SK Telecom. FLICKR applying the pressure early, getting the rune prison down, holding Xiaohu in place. basically upsetting RNG's game plan that they want with this Wombo combo. An absolute combo breaker there with the Leona ultimate going down early too. Thought that RNG were going to be able to bring it together, but no focus in the team fight cost them dearly.
Split fire, losing the Kayle right at the start. Of course, only 1.5 items for Xiaohu thus far, not to the level 16 point, the next thing that we've got our eye on. So has time to scale back up, but can't afford to take another uncoordinated fight in the future. And losing that Infernal is going to hurt them more and more as we get later into the game.
And one of the big things about that fight was that now even more gold has gone into the back pocket of FLICKR and Khan. The two solo laners of SKT are only going to get stronger, and they're actually yet to spend a lot of the gold that they're sitting on. Keep your eyes on the items of FLICKR once he hits the shop, because with 2.5k gold in your inventory, you can pick up those additional items, and now you are so much stronger than you were in the last fight.
And objectives start to go down. They want to split the map. Bottom turret taken care of. Top will be the next destination for them. If you can get that, you empower your 1-3-1 to, well, here we go.
Flying a drag over Uzi is so incredibly strong. Khan just gets one shot. That's the 2-item spike for the Ezreal paired with that ultimate.
And RNG cut them off before they can get to the next objective. They know they're going topside, so they get the early kill, and now Baron control results.
Another flag and drag effort once again caught out. The CC is there. They're going to land the taunt. They're going to make sure that he has no way out of this fight. Effort. Still running. Someone finishes the kill. Hits him with the gunblade. Bang, bang. RNG control over the pit.
And now RNG are going to go straight for Baron. We've been talking so much about the solo laners, we forgot to talk about Uzi, where all of the gold is sitting on for RNG. That damage was ridiculous. Let's see if Clid can steal.
Next flash, trying to deny Clid. He gets kicked back with the taunt lands there. He's trying to buy more time.
He puts him in.
But no, the Mordekaiser ulted. See ya, Clid. Not what you wanted. RNG gonna take this fight. Ming gonna make it out alive. It's everything the LPL second seed could want.
And RNG flipped the game on its head once again. The Baron goes down for them. They don't lose a single member. The gold remains even, but we're in for another masterclass between RNG and SKT.
RNG get to the top side of the map 10 seconds earlier than SKT, and they are rewarded so heavily with those 2 picks. Also, reward to Langx, learned from the first time around he played Mordekaiser. This time, he instantly ults the jungler to secure the Baron control for them. You cannot smite if you have entered the Death Realm. And now, with the Baron buff, RNG will march on SK Telecom territory.
And this is important because it's going to be so much harder for SKT to try to split up the map. FLICKR can push down that side lane, probably can take that tier 1, but has to be concerned about that mid lane, has to be concerned about the fact that RNG are now set up to break 2, if not 3 towers on this push.
Yeah, I mean, they're extremely strong, and remember the RNG, they have the teleports that they didn't have last time, so there's no sneaky backdoors that are going to come through from SKT this time around. FLICKR being forced to base as RNG set their sights on the tier 3.
Langx on the bottom side, FLICKR just now backing. Kick will connect, but there's going to be no follow-up. SKT holding on for now. It's a matter of protecting the cannon creeps as the Mordekaiser starts the bot side wave, but no, FLICKR instead has decided to continue his push. Mordekaiser will be forced to retreat. FLICKR can now back and look for a man advantage in the fight unless Langx wants to commit his TP to this mid lane. GP ult now coming out. Not a lot of damage onto the tower. They need to get out before the fight kicks off. Ming wants to go in anyway, right to the GP ult. What was that?
Ming once again diving into the face of the enemy team and just handing his life away on a silver platter.
I'm going to need to see a replay because has Ming gone rogue again? Let's take a... All right, well, this is the Baron. This is it. Even more important, this is what Clid sees. As we said, once you enter the Death Realm, Baron's not there.
Langx saying, you've activated my trap card. You're coming to the Shadow Realm with me. He denies the Baron steal and allows RNG to get the secure. But we have to backtrack to what just happened here. And this is a beautiful replay. What is Ming thinking here? Okay, he's not. That's what we've concluded. That's what he's doing.
He's thinking this. He's thinking Leroy
I mean, it's a classic. I will say that I don't mind it if you wait out the Gangplank ult. You know, just wait for that one to end, and I think it would have made a lot more sense.
Well, the bright side for RNG is that they don't cost their lead. They're still in a favorable position. They gained control over a lot of the map. They've been able to secure a lot more items in their back pocket, and look at how much control they have over the top side. Gangplank is currently sitting bot. His ultimate is going to be up soon, and Langx is going to be forced to deal with him.
Tier 2 tower will be broken on the top side for RNG. Doesn't look like they're going to be able to break the base on this Baron push. for now. 21 seconds left. Khan still threatening on the bottom side. So despite the Baron buff, SKT still finding some success with split pushing.
All right, take a deep breath. After the Baron play, after the dive on mid, RNG have taken over so much of the map. Take stock of the towers, both on top side, both in mid lane, now gone and taken away from SKT. This allows the vision control to starve out the jungle now for RNG. They can move up with the threat of this AoE from Galio Jarvan combination for engaging and push SK Telecom around.
And what SKT now want to do is ideally look for picks as RNG are making moves to set up for the next big objectives, which will be this Baron. Because in a straight-up 5v5, I think even though the Teddy is at 3 items and is a very strong Karsa, the team fight execution is so much harder for that of SKT because they don't have the same front line that RNG has. They don't have the Jarvan. They don't have the Mordekaiser who can literally remove someone from a fight as well. And so I think it's going to be harder. They need to make plays like this.
Langx just going to try to pull FLICKR into the death row. I'm going to take the tower out of the equation, and the Mordekaiser does a lot of damage. Langx now is running to the hills, just on the edge of the death room. He's going to come right out into the cannon barrage, and now he's on the retreat. Has used the shield, has used the indestructible, but it's Xiaohu kicked into the middle of the team. He will flash out a beautiful taunt from Ming, trying to make up for earlier as RNG will pull back on the bottom side.
So a quick collapse there from RNG as SKT tried to find a pick. The initial idea was good, but the use of the Death Realm from Langx mitigates it, turns it into a 1v1, and is able to escape.
That's why in Champion Select we highlighted the possibilities here of the Mordekaiser for delaying those picks in split pushes. With using that ultimate, he buys time for the extra survivability of the RNG composition to take effect. Multiple re-engages there for RNG to actually save members and get them out from under the tower.
He's also a Gnasher's Tooth Mordekaiser, so as much as he's buying time, he also will just threaten to 1v1 kill most members of SKT as the Cataclysm comes out. Effort has to flash out to safety. RNG not overcommitting to the play. They'll get the TP, though, from Khan on the back of that one.
And RNG are just forcing SKT to group. They're forcing SKT to be in a situation that suits RNG perfectly, and we kind of have to go back to the early game where we talked so much about SKT wanting to play through bot, which they were unable to do. While their side laners were going even and they found that one big fight around the Drake, unfortunately SKT have not been able to balloon or snowball this lead, so that we're ending up in this stalemate of 5v5 standoff.
Yeah, quick macro test here for SK Telecom. They're down teleports on both solo laners. RNG has a level 16 teleport available Mordekaiser who just pushed up the bottom lane, and with Baron spawning here, they're moving over to try and find the engage.
Effort will miss, just barely going wide. Uzi now knows he's free to poke, so a lot of the threat is gone from the Leona. SKT backing into the pit. They have control over this area. Gangplank going to clear out the last little bit of vision that RNG were holding on to.
SKT is split.
Maybe they find the engage here. Mordekaiser has the ulti and the flash up and available. Can look to just lock someone out of the fight.
RNG could have left their Mordekaiser split pushing, by the way, but they really want to force this 5-on-5.
Ming really does not land that taunt, has no longer a reliable way to proc that aftershock. Someone sidesteps, so will be forced to flash out to safety. But now the engage, they found SKT split, they've locked FLICKR into the pit. Are they going to aggro the Baron to try to get it kicked off? He will. Uzi's going to see that one coming, and now the support is dead. He's trying to realm warp his way out. He's going to do it. FLICKR, the escape artist, gets out in the play, and Khan on the side with a huge barrel, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. He's now running fearlessly into the front line of RNG. They're trying to kick him back, but Xiaohu says no. They deny it. Teddy now on a rampage. RNG on a retreat, and SKT, they're alive, and the Karsa is taking over the fight.
They failed the macro test. They had more cards available here with the Baron spawning. They force it on Baron. SK Telecom outplay them in the team fight, and the Baron is theirs to start.
Huge props to Khan in that final fight. The barrels were beautiful as they hit every single member of RNG. They are now the team to walk away with the Baron. They outplay them in the fight, and they keep their hopes alive in this game.
And just an incredible fight. Before we see it again, it's on RNG now to take what they can. For now, that's just a Mountain Drake, a second one to back them up. And as we look back at this exchange, have to keep an eye on exactly what went wrong for RNG.
So the initial part is here. SKT are split up, and while Ming is a little over-eager once again, he's forced to flash early, but now you see FLICKR and Effort forced to run up through the river. This is a good engage from RNG. They should have put a little bit more focus onto actually securing the kill onto FLICKR, but he's out of the fight, it's done. Now Langx, he's completely isolated himself from the rest of the team.
Oh my.
And then keep your eyes on Khan here. Look at what he does with the barrel. The triple hit onto every member means that Teddy, with a 3-item Kai'Sa, can just follow up behind the Lee Sin and just go kill after kill after kill.
Then Clid going in, baiting out the Kayle ultimate, flashing to the outskirts. FLICKR surviving with single-digit HP. And we're into chapter 2 here.
He doesn't even react. He's like, all right, just another day for FLICKR. As the siege now begins for SKT in the mid lane, Uzi potentially going to get cut off on the side. A good sidestep, and now the GP ulti is coming through. Khan fishing for that barrel, but will not be able to find it. Clid may also look for the flank, but has been spotted on a bit of vision as FLICKR continues to split on the top side of the map.
Let that be a lesson to you. A good GP barrel chain can drastically change your fates. Now it is SK Telecom wearing the Baron buff. Part 2 of this game, as we have gone back and forth since minute 2.
Yep. And you know it's going to be a tense ending. The last time these two teams met, it was a split push back door that came out from SKT, the triple teleport to be able to secure the Nexus and get the win. We're in a very similar situation where both teams have had a Baron each. While RNG lead in the Drakes, SKT have the Infernal. And you know that both teams are scaling still relatively well. SKT would prefer to play through the side lanes, try and split up the map. Whereas RNG looking for this fight. Uzi not able to find the pick onto Effort, but an incredibly tense game still.
Big chunks coming in. The Kaisa is getting stronger and stronger, though, and that's going to make these team fights more difficult. And we saw it in the last one. Teddy, the second he saw those major cooldowns are gone from the side of RNG. He's no longer threatened, and he can just walk through this team. Maybe Xiaohu can look to match him in the fights to come. Has the Divine Judgment, has that ultimate. But for now, SKT with total control. FLICKR going to TP into the mid lane. They want to keep this momentum going as they move later into the game.
Xiaohu has now hit level 16, so he will be permanently exalted. The Kayle is at one of her strongest points as SKT continue to knock down the towers. The towers are now even between both teams. We're pretty much going to reset the map state to even.
Yeah, well, guess what? FLICKR's hit level 18. He's exalted for Ryze. Fully capped out there. Looking at a possible death cap on top of it, too. Like to see...
Oh! Trying to cancel. Khan flashing out, but he's still locked in. That's... Oh! Has to be a heartbreaker. Caught between the wall and the Cataclysm. Khan goes down.
Unfortunately for RNG, there is nothing for them to get on the map after that pick. It's definitely a valuable pick that they can use to clear out all of this jungle vision that SK Telecom just placed in their bottom red quadrant. But other than some vision cleaning duty to do, that is not going to be a game-changing pick for them.
The bright side is they will get the flash out from Khan, which those summoner spells later into the game are extremely valuable. He will still have the oranges for safety, but we'll see how that affects him later on into the game. Honestly, though, both teams going to be waiting for the next Baron. There's no need to try and force anything right now. That will be the biggest objective coming up next, and we're going to have a look back. Of course, Khan, he has...
Just farming away, you know?
Just let's get that cheeky one
chickens.
shot of the Raptors in there in case anyone...
Oh, he's in the shop!
And, oh, no. Well...
A pirate's life.
See, no matter how bad you feel about your solo queue games while you die shopping, it happens to everybody, you know? High-pressure Worlds games, Bronze 3.
SK Telecom will always remember this as the day they did catch Captain Khan.
He wants parlay, Kobe.
Now the Baron will be spawning in about 1 minute and 15 seconds. You can see that RNG do primarily have vision control around this objective. They could look to, yeah, you can see the Galio resetting, stocking up on wards, making sure that even though they have this control, when SKT come to contest, they still have wards that can be replaced.
I absolutely love watching these two storied teams with all the veterans in-game for these late-game scenarios, too. Now, past 34 minutes into the game, fully ready for the Dragon spawn here. Teleport starts to go out.
He coming in. That's going to be the flying drag. Going on to the Leona, though. Teddy on the backside. Are they going to be able to take anyone else out? Effort trying to find the stun. Karsa kicked out of the fight instantly, and Uzi is going to get kicked back, but with the cleanse flash. It's incredibly clean. He denies the lease in, but now he's face-to-face with Teddy, and still Clid will find him. Still, Uzi is set to fall. Can he do it? No! The shutdown coming through. FLICKR will take the kill, and Langx is left standing in the death realm, but it is his death realm, and he is out of there.
And SKT smash RNG in the team fight. All 5 members are dead. SKT still have 4, and they are barreling towards the Nexus.
Yep, they're looking for the inhibitor at least, maybe ending the game. How fast can they push?
Pushing faster and faster, there's nothing left. This is it, I can't believe it, RNG. They fought tooth and nail at every opportunity, but SKT outclassing them in the team fights will lock them a place in the knockout stage and will give them the head-to-head versus RNG.
Unbelievable final team fight from SKT. It happened in the blink of an eye, but it was just RNG putting all of their resources into trying to kill Effort, and he just did not die. Meanwhile, Karsa just disappears under the damage from Teddy.
And I think we need to see the replay. If I'm completely honest, I want to watch it back. I want to watch it 10 times. It was incredible team fighting. The Lee Sin from Clid was out of this world. And when he landed the kick, I thought it was over, but no, the cleanse flash from Uzi, still not enough to win the fight.
And with this win, SKT will lock a spot in the quarterfinals. Their seeding is yet to be determined. They still have to play out the rest of the day, but SKT will be in the knockout stage.
SK Telecom could set themselves up for another 6-0 group stage.
Yeah.
One of the only teams to ever accomplish that, and they are looking so incredibly powerful.
And really, for RNG, still can be confident to make their way out of this group, but have to be left wondering, what can they change, what can they improve? Because SKT, while we criticize them for over-forcing fights sometime, we also got to see the positive.
They're still really good at them,
They're still really good at fights.
I like the force on that last one.
But you've also got to recognize how strong RNG are. We saw so many great things from them, and I think one of the biggest things that hurt RNG in this game was Ming had a surprising game. He overforced a lot of plays, he got caught out a lot of the time, and Xiaohu in these team fights was not the same that we saw last week. He had a phenomenal week 1, but today, FLICKR by far and away outclassed him.
I mean, honestly, that was the game breaker, was the execution within their team fights. SK Telecom dissecting this RNG composition.
Absolutely, but let's send it over to the analyst desk for more on that game 1.
Thank you very much, Dracos. Before we get into the nitty-gritty analysis, beforehand we said this may be the best game we see in the group stage. Yamato, you've also joined us. What do you think now that you've seen it?
My goodness, I think it was a repetition of the first game. I feel like RNG is always more proactive. They manage to get the advantages, but then they kind of lose to this patient tiger that is SKT that is ready to pounce when they find their moments.
And it felt like those moments came in 3 kind of big beats for me. It was the Infernal Drake fight where Xiaohu flashed into the wall, missed his Kayle ultimate and basically just died instantaneously. It was Khan's Baron Barrel where they got RNG into a choke point and then just blew them up. And then RNG over-committing on effort. 3 very critical mistakes in team fights.
And we're going to go through all of them, but first let's look at the setup. You had some win conditions for RNG. How much of those do you see translated into their pick and ban?
So they did play through from mid to bot, which is nice. In fact, there was one instance, I think, J4 was going bot immediately, so I guess he wanted to start bot first. But the biggest surprise to me was the fact that they were willing to give mid pressure with the Kayle pick. So I was expecting there to be, let's say, a Syndra early, and I think they decided not to go down that route and ultimately went for a heavy focus in team fights with Kayle, J4, and Galio instead.
Frosker, and something you brought up as well is that, yeah, we've been wondering after Desires and the Kaisas, what do you go for as a marksman? But the fact that Uzi goes for Ezreal is something different than if someone else goes for an Ezreal. He does something much more on that champion.
Yeah, so it is a cannonball composition coming out of the LPL. Their 2 most played champions historically are Galio and Jarvan. It's kind of the bread and butter. We were talking about it in the cast room. We saw it coming. SKT definitely should have seen it coming. And when you pair it with something like an Ezreal and a Kayle, you basically group everyone up in the little hoop, and then you just start throwing AoE damage on them. The Ezreal ultimate, the line damage through. Yamato, you also talked about that if you give away the Ezreal, then it makes it that much harder to lock it down. So I think that the composition makes sense, but I can understand why you might have wanted to see a Kaisa.
I think Kaisa is just so blatantly broken, and I think just giving it away, it also has escape tools. I think the idea behind RNG's draft here is to try to shoehorn SKT into a position where they don't have the Ezreal or the Tristana potentially into the Kai'Sa as a pick, but instead, I think Kai'Sa's a champion that can just survive and just a high-quality champion in comparison to
High quality.
High quality.
Overpowered.
Champion, definitely. Very high quality. Well, good drafts coming out of both sides. Willingness to fight, and that is what we saw. We're going to now run through those replays that FLICKR set up. First up, the Dragon fight, the Infernal in the end for SKT.
I had no idea we'd actually pull the replays. Yeah, keep your eyes on Xiaohu right now. He's getting blasted by Infernal. He stands in the Gangplank ultimate. He then has to burn it defensively and flashes into the wall. That is like solo lost on Xiaohu alone.
And it sucks because the setup for this Dragon was impeccable from RNG. They had the control wards all set up, they had the side lanes pushed out, they had firm control there, and even the GP teleport, which should have been the discussion. That should have been the point where you had to flash instantly. Xiaohu walks up to SKT where they knew they were, got blasted, unfortunate.
Yeah,
that's all you gotta say, man. What am I supposed to say?
Indeed, it looks very bad because if your Gangplank TPs in and immediately has to flash, you think, oh, well, we might not win that fight.
Yeah.
SKT turns it around. But then the next replay we're going to look at is where RNG end up getting the Baron, and this is where the power spikes start to hit, and they play out those team fights so well.
The story behind this play was that, of course, RNG manages to get 2 picks right before the Snatcher. They have a lot of good tools to force, and I think that's the biggest difference maker here for RNG in comparison to the last game. They have better tools to engage, they have better tools to force Snatcher because that Mordekaiser can, of course, ult the Lee Sin, and all of a sudden he can't steal away from Karsa.
Yeah, we missed the setup there.
There's absolutely no way to steal it from Karsa. Not only is Galio just aiming for you, but also just the Mordekaiser just sitting there. It's just like not a possibility.
Let me do a check-in with the junglers then. It was our featured matchup coming in. Spawn was on the desk saying Clid is the best jungler in the world. We know that Karsa is phenomenal. If you'd have to judge them just off this game, Frost, where does it go?
I mean, for me, I thought that Karsa had a good read on Clid, but it was a team effort. It was constantly blitzing into Clid's jungle, placing down a lot of deep vision, making sure that he was tracking them, and it was Karsa that got the superior counter ganks. Now, obviously, Clid also looked fantastic. He does things on Lee Sin that I think Spawn said it shouldn't really be possible. But for me, RNG had a clear plan to slow down and neutralize Clid in early.
That they did. They had a good team fight. They had the Baron. They seemed poised to not make the same mistakes that they did in the first game and to hang on to their lead. But something happens in this fight where Teddy steps up.
This is where you need to have that one member that's taking a look at how strong the GP's been getting, because he's been getting a lot of crit items at this point. This is a great start from RNG, but it's the finish that we should be talking about.
Yeah, and it's not something happened, it's someone happened, and it was Khan. Just absolutely destroyed RNG in a choke point. And now this is repeated instances where RNG are being out-team fought on the back half of it. And I think that's kind of the key takeaway when you look at this SKT. You look at the LPL, you look at RNG, you'd say like best team fighting region in the world, best team fighting team in the world, and SKT just destroyed them.
They did. In that light, I want to take a look at the Oppo player of the game, Teddy, and his pro view from the last team fight. And also where I want to ask the question, is this a worry for RNG, the fact that where is their bread and butter, the team fights, they get outplayed by SKT?
Oh, for sure. Because this was the sexiest team fight of the tournament so far. Where I thought, you know, Ezreal repositioning was beautiful, but then he finds the ultimate right into the back line. And by the time Mordekaiser steals him in, that's a one fight because of his ultimate.
I just feel like it's a clear sign of frustration here for RNG. They're engaging on a Leona. And also the fact that they've reached this point in the game where they managed to find so many advantages. And Nasher earlier on, when Ming just ran it down, they could have ended, but instead Kaisa reaches a point where she has 6 items, and all of a sudden this Ezreal is not as effective no matter what player it is. It could be Uzi ×2 if you wanted. Kaisa is just going to be superior.
And that feels like the biggest gap when you're looking at the top teams in this tournament. If you make a single mistake, they will rip the game away from you, and that's why SKT are so devastating. It's not just in the team fights. It's Ming running it down in the mid lane when they had the Baron. It was the fact that RNG got their Kayle to level 16, but a single slip-up and the game can be pulled away.
Just a reminder, like that whole GP barrel situation got SKT the Baron to begin with afterwards, so that bought them a lot of time. Suddenly Ryze could be able to get to his level 18 power spike. Like, that was unfortunate, and it was those mistakes that you had mentioned that really got SKT those games.
Fantastic display, not dropping a beat. SKT on their way to a 6-0 possibly. And earlier the teams filed into the VOD Music Hall in hopes of promoting to the quarterfinals. You're catching the footage caught by the Oppo Reno 2 through its wide-angle lens. After the break, Fnatic and Clutch look to clash in Game 2. Don't go anywhere.
Hercules. I have been expecting you.
And I brought you a gift, so you can fight properly. Red Bull.
Ooh, how nice of you, but also rather foolish. Mine, no mine, mine, no mine.
Mine. Red Bull gives you wings.